There are offenses to us as citizens which exceed all measure of understanding and appreciation. Certainly over the last 100 years we have vehemently opposed, many of us, the fact that we've lost the control of our monetary system through the use of the Federal Reserve. But probably as outrageous, even though it is an anecdotal situation and an ongoing mischief to our presidency and our form of government, is the act of the special counsel to interfere with the private counsel of the president. And in this case, Mr. Cohen had his house, I think his car, and his apartment or his hotel room all ransacked by the special counsel. And there are discussions ongoing in the press about, and on Fox and in other places, about how this implicated the process and how this Cohen guy is personal and that he is involved in the Stormy Daniels thing and the rest of that. Well, the United States Constitution, which was enacted over 200 years ago, provides in the Sixth Amendment that in all criminal accusations, the defendant, the accused, has various rights, and those rights include a speedy and public trial, impartial jury of the state, and it has to be relative to the crime itself, the location of the crime itself. He or she, the defendant, needs to know about what they're being accused. And the right to investigate, the right to have access to all the materials which are used against them, including the people that are their accusers, and as well as the right to obtain witnesses, and finally, the right to an effective assistance of counsel. And the courts have long held that an effective assistance of counsel inherently includes the right of access to that attorney, that is, that the person can work with, whether incarcerated or not, has the free access to that attorney in a relatively easy fashion in order to effectively represent themselves in court, as well as the right to freely speak to that attorney and have that attorney undertake their defense as though the two were melded as one. In other words, that the attorney, for the purposes of that person's defense, there is no separation between the attorney and the accused himself or herself. And that includes the right against self-incrimination or the violation or interference of the Sixth Amendment right to counsel itself. And in this case, it is fairly clear that what Mule-R was seeking is a whole range of communications with regard to the inherently private communications between Mr. Trump as an individual and as a citizen and his counsel, his right to ongoing counsel about a whole range of matters. And the Supreme Court has consistently held that that right of counsel is inherent in our Constitution and have overturned convictions as a result of it. So, and in addition to that, have excluded the information that could be obtained by the violation of the prosecution into the inner workings of the defendant and his or her attorney, including wiretapping and other intrusions, having investigators or that kind of thing gaining access to the documentation. So in all these respects, if in fact Trump is the person being suspected, then any of the access to Trump's private and personal communications with his attorney is in violation of the Sixth Amendment, where that person is being sought. And the only exclusion that I can see to that is where it is possible that Cohen and Trump were engaging in ongoing criminal activity, and that Cohen himself is a potential accused. But if in fact the intrusion into his life is a subterfuge for obtaining access to Trump, and then what Mueller has apparently done is he's saying, well, the news are saying that if in fact Mueller obtains information which is outside of the scope of the special investigation, he's going to hand that information over to another law enforcement agency, another prosecutorial agency in New York, in order to obtain convictions for things which were outside of the purview of the special prosecutor, which in and of itself is a subterfuge of the constitutional process that we have. So nobody, it seems to me, has asked what it is that Cohen might have done which would have validated the intrusion into his life as a potential criminal suspect, and more than that, by the special prosecutor, which would relate to in any way directly or peripherally with what it is that the special prosecutor is charged to look for as criminal offenses. In other words, if he's going on some kind of rogue investigation of some outside thing like the Stormy Daniels stuff and the rest of that, it is entirely outside the purview of his special prosecution and investigation. And he is only supposed to incidentally or coincidentally pursue or observe or follow on violations that come within, that they happen to come upon in the purview of the prosecution and investigation of the reason for which he's charged to be a special investigator to start with. So it is fundamentally offensive to me that we can't seem to protect any of our constitutional rights. And this one, as much as any of the rest, violates not only the president, but all the rest of us. Because if any one of us, no matter where we are stationed in this country, whether president or janitor, if any one of us is subject to the kinds of intrusions that this apparently involves, then we have all lost the Bill of Rights and the constitutional protections we have. And certainly some of us have looked at the whole Patriot Act and the Freedom Act, which are the opposite of patriot and the opposite of freedom. Isn't that quite coincidentally interesting? We've looked at all of those and see for ourselves that those in fact violate our fundamental rights as well, and that we supposedly validated those because we are engaged in this war against terrorism. Now, I don't know any guy named terrorism. And I don't know a country named terrorism. And frankly, while we have the ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the rest of these guys that are the Taliban and the Al-Shabaab and the Muslim Brotherhood and the rest of that are allegedly terrorist organizations, there is very little indication that there is a war of engagement against us as the United States, and that certainly does not apply to things that are going on inside of Libya or Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria for that matter. Which takes us to the second issue that is so prominent right now in the news, which is this whole craziness around the false flag of people being attacked by chemical weapons in Syria. Again, we have a problem with the fact that not only is that clearly or apparently a false flag which Russia and others deny actually occurred, but it is being ballyhooed by both Republicans and that is the neocon pro-war Republicans, and most of the Democrats that we need to go in and do something about it. Well, you know, there are atrocities all over this world on an ongoing basis. Tens of thousands of people a month are killed for no reason, needlessly, painfully, in a way that would be unconstitutional and unthinkable to us as American citizens. But those things are ongoing all the time, and we are not the world's police officer, nor should we be putting ourselves in nuclear harm's way against China and Russia and perhaps others, Pakistan and others, by getting in the middle of this process, even if Assad did the act, which seems both silly and unlikely as part of the narrative that's ongoing with respect to Syria. It's just another excuse for us to get into a deeper and deeper engagement in what began as the George W. Bush fake intrusion into terrorism and Afghanistan and Iraq that has now put us trillions of dollars in debt. Not billions, trillions of dollars in debt, has caused the death of thousands of American citizens, has sent home tens of thousands of injured American citizens, many of which have PTSD, and the suicide rate of which is many per day. 500,000 initially of children starved to death in Iraq even before the war was started, people age 5 and under, millions literally dispossessed of their homes and left in open spaces to defend for themselves with no infrastructure and no protection of the government that was formerly there to provide for them. And there are millions, of course, that are trying to escape, including into Europe and elsewhere as refugees, all because we see a few thousand people allegedly engaged in terror. So that's the second issue, and it is just as crazy as the first. And together, not only will we have lost our constitutional rights, but we will have engaged ourselves as taxpayers and as citizens in things which are going on throughout this world that puts us at additional risk to no benefit, with no benefit to ourselves. No matter how it turns out, there will be no benefit to ourselves. So I am appalled at where we are, and one of the things that we can look to as we see whether or not this whole Q narrative has meaning or not is whether or not Trump bites on the Syria stuff. If in fact he follows what Bolton and others would have said for him to do in the previous 4 administrations or 3 administrations, all the way from H.W. Bush through Clinton, through little Georgie Jr. and Obama, if in fact Bolton and others, neocons, the pro-war guys, the guys like Graham and Jock Strap McStain that are trying to force us into war, if in fact Trump bites on this, I would say to each and every one of us, there is less likelihood that Trump is actually sees the problem for what it is and is going to reverse it in his terms of office. So I am watching carefully both at how this whole Syria, China, Russia thing is working, and also at how Trump might respond to the violation, what appears to be a fundamental violation of his own constitutional rights as a citizen in this country, what he does about it, and how it appears to affect or impact the rest of us as citizens, because indeed both of those make a great deal of difference to us. Thank you so much for watching. This is me on my little soapbox. And I encourage and ask you to give me a thumbs up if you agree with me, and to subscribe if you see fit. I'm watching the Q stuff. There were some things posted recently that I thought did not warrant my attention, frankly. It's nice to have everybody standing around the Oval Office having pictures taken, but I don't see anything special in it. And until I do, I don't really think it warrants me jumping all about and putting Q stuff all over my thing. So I will look for substantive materials upon which to report. Thank you so much. And, by the way, we are moving precipitously towards a petition we're going to file with the White House, and I'm looking for that to happen this week. When I do, I will have a video on it. We will announce it, and we hope that every one of you and tens of thousands of others, if not millions of others, move forward to do so, because I think doing so will fundamentally change the way this government operates and perhaps the way the world responds to a whole range of problems. Thank you so much for watching.